Some people have an anime they consider awesome for nostalgic reasons or some other reason. It might be One Piece or Dragon Ball Z. Pokemon fans consider the Pokemon anime, especially the original, awesome. And many consider Attack on Titan and My Hero Academia awesome. However, there is one anime that I consider awesome, and that is the Gundam anime timeline. And its many spin-offs. Yes, there are a lot of spin-offs when it comes to Gundam. Why do I consider Gundam awesome? Well, let me give you 5 reasons as to why I consider Gundam awesome. The first reason is the fact the stories that Gundam tells, which in many cases are brilliant with a wide range of characters, and many of these stories feel grounded in reality in terms of their themes and how they handle the conflict of the story. The best aspect of the stories of Gundam in many cases is the fact the stories can tell both a story of hope and tragedy, namely the tragedy of war. But at the same time, hope is maybe for a fact that people survive and maybe, just maybe, we might learn a lesson or two from it. And then we have the shows that have a generally more darker theme. But the darker themes in many cases do tell a terrifying story of what can happen when people are given control of terrifying weapons, or when people with the wrong ideas are also given power. And also the fact of what happens if these people truly get given a chance to realise their plans. Yes, basically, a lot of Gundams have a generally interesting story when it comes to regards to certain themes, thematic conflict, and just in general how they handle the show itself. The second reason why Gundam is awesome is the fact that every Gundam timeline establishes a lived-in universe. And I do love me a lived-in universe. And it is established that before the war, people had lives, and even in the space of conflict, they still try and live their lives as the war goes on around them. This gives each universe and timeline a very lived-in feel, and it's further seen when we look at the animes, especially anime like the universe centering Gundam X and Gundam Seed, is that some areas are left untouched by the war itself. These areas escape destruction for one reason or another. But then some areas are utterly devastated by war. And there is a great attention to detail in every Gundam timeline about how the dynamics of each faction work. And we even get a look into how life is, in some cases, for the other side of the conflict as well, beyond the protagonist side of things. In fact, the lived-in universe feel can actually go quite a great deal, and can show us a wide range of perspectives. The third reason as to why Gundam is awesome is the fact that Gundam is just full of giant robots, and giant robots fighting all over the place. That's what the mobile suits are, they are giant robots. It's called Mobile Suit Gundam. And many of the mobile suits are brilliantly and uniquely designed in many cases. You have homages to old suits popping up from time to time, and at the same time, but then again we have unique ideas as well on how mobile suits function and operate. And then the mobile suits are just used just about everywhere in every Gundam timeline. First of all, we see mobile suits fighting in space, as Gundam does take place in space. And then we see mobile suits on Earth, and they stomp around and cause general chaos and mayhem. And in many cases, we even see the mobile suits sometimes fight in the air through various different means, and even go underwater. There's even a Gundam OVA called the 8th MS Team, in which literally we have 3 mobile suits, namely Gundams, and a bunch of Xeon mobile suits, trudging through a jungle and fighting in the jungle and the lands around it. And we even get some brilliant urban fighting with mobile suits in the same anime as well. Yeah, so basically the action fighting with mechs is actually very, very good. And at the same time, I do love me a giant robot. And also there's got all the unique designs as well. The fourth reason why Gundam is awesome is the fact there's a whole wide range of characters in many Gundam shows. In a lot of Gundam anime, you can get a wide range of characters. And many of them often have some degree of nuance to them. And yet, at the same time, there is a clever usage of character tropes as well, with everything from total badasses to tragic characters who possibly have to deal with all kinds of trauma. And many of the characters, especially the main cast, go through different arcs as the course of the show progresses, with their opinions and views changing, and at the same time, them suffering from various different traumas or as the story progresses. Even the villains of the shows are done brilliantly well, using the idea of the fact that many villains are the hero of their own story in a roundabout sort of way. And at the same time, often their motivations are either explained to you throughout the course of the story, or then by explaining it themselves. Usually through political motivation. The original Mobile Suit Gundam actually does feature quite a lot of political commentary. And with this, you end up with some truly excellent villains, like the Zabi family from the original Gundam anime. They are each various different villains, from downright evil, all the way to just a corrupt politician who thought he had the best way of dealing with things, and then realising, no, he didn't. Goran Zabi in particular, the leader of the Principality of Xeon, technically, is an excellent case. With his motivations and reasons, literally explained by himself in a format you can understand, but it's not dumbed down for the sake of the audience. And it also proves the fact that a good villain does not have to have some sort of redeeming quality, or doesn't need to be tragic. They just need to be villainous and at the same time sell the idea of the fact that they're villainy to you. Basically, in many cases, you can understand where many of the characters are coming from and what they're saying. And it can even be an excellent way for a Gundam show to actually explain its message in a roundabout sort of way. And can also be used to explore key aspects of the story in some cases. Yes, Gundam has actually got quite a lot of character depth to it as well. And the fifth and final reason why Gundam is awesome is basically it has clever uses of both realism and artistic license. Namely, artistic license, the fact you have giant robots being used to fight wars. But the development process for many of these machines, relatively speaking, is handled in a realistic type of way, with new machines being developed and even a clear lineage of how this new concept got off the ground, including the pitfalls of trying to develop new technology, and even how the concept itself actually works, like how they actually so honestly thought that would be a good idea. Is the development process actually handled in a somewhat realistic fashion with clear progression between the various different machines. Then, a number of Gundam shows utilise a fairly realistic concept for the idea of the construction of a space colony, actually pioneered by actual NASA scientists, doing what I believe most likely in the 1960s. Namely, the fact the colonies are cylindrical, based on a concept drawn up by concept artists of how we might live in space. And the original Gundam Universal Century follows this concept to a T, relatively speaking, and they do look fairly realistic. Although quite possibly their size is a bit ludicrous. So you've got artistic license there again. Meanwhile, in the UC timeline, the mobile suits have a fusion reactor which produces so-called Minovsky particles, which are basically a fictional particle that is used to power them. And somehow these particles can also jam radio waves and greatly reduce the effectiveness of radar. And if concentration enough, can be used as a powerful energy weapon in the Universal Century timeline. But the weapons themselves also can run out of power. And in the Cosmic Seed timeline, there's actually a clever trick there because the mobile suits are battery powered. And on a couple of occasions, the mobile suits do nearly run out of power, especially the Gundams. Yeah, so basically, Mobile Suit Gundam and its other derivatives many times strike a happy medium between realism and artistic license, using both to enhance the action of the stories, the movements and dynamics of the various different actions taking place, how certain things and concepts are used, but also why the fuck we need giant robots to fight wars in the first place, and at the same time, why conflicts are breaking out in the first place. Basically, Mobile Suit Gundam can use realism to enhance its own storytelling, which is definitely something that is actually very good. And well, there you have it. 5 reasons as to why I think Mobile Suit Gundam is awesome. Tell me what anime you think is awesome. Please leave your answers in a respectable fashion in the comments below. Thank you. I believe it's channel. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheerio.